The Billboard battle. I'd been away for just 4 days. For days of peace, hiking the rolling hills of Central Oregon with my German Shepherd, Rusty, and no cell signal to interrupt the silence. The air was crisp, the kind that makes you feel alive, and I'd planned to come back to my quiet little property in Willow Creek, ready to finish the sprinkler system I'd been tinkering with for weeks. But when I pulled my pickup into the driveway that sunny October morning, my heart sank. There, smack in the middle of my front yard, stood a monstrous billboard, its steel frame glinting like a middle finger to my privacy. It was at least 15 feet tall, bolted into concrete footings that had torn up my grass and crushed the irrigation lines I'd spent months perfecting. The sign was an eyesore, painted in garish red and yellow, with bold letters screaming, "Welcome to Pineview Estates, where neighbors shine." I sat frozen in my truck, Rusty whining softly in the back seat, as I tried to process what I was seeing. My yard had been turned into a community advertisement without so much as a phone call. The sun burned my neck as I stepped out, and I noticed the debris. Empty soda cans, crumpled fast food bags, and a half-smoked cigar lying in the dirt near the base. Someone had even scrawled "board approved" in black marker on the back of the sign. I clenched my fists, my blood boiling. This wasn't just a mistake. This was an invasion. I'm Jack Harper, a 52-year-old widower who moved to Willow Creek 5 years ago for one reason: solitude. After losing my wife, Ellen, to cancer, I wanted a place where I could rebuild, where the world wouldn't poke its nose into my business. My 2-acre lot sits just outside the Pineview Estates Homeowners Association jurisdiction, a fact confirmed by the county and a letter from the HOA's lawyer when I bought the place. My land, my rules. Or so I thought. I grabbed my phone and called the county planning office. The clerk, a guy named Tom, sounded genuinely shocked when I described the billboard. "No permits filed for your parcel, Mr. Harper," he said after a quick check. "No easements, no right-of-way. Your boundaries are clean." When I asked if someone could come inspect it, he chuckled darkly. "HOA did this. Ballsy move. I'll send someone tomorrow." Next, I called my old friend Mike, a contractor who runs a small demolition crew. Mike's the kind of guy who laughs at bureaucracy and loves a challenge. "They built what on your lawn?" he said, already half laughing. By noon, he was at my place with a flatbed truck, a blowtorch, and a crew of 3 guys who looked like they'd been itching for something to tear down. "This is some next-level nonsense," Mike said, shaking his head as he surveyed the sign. "Let's make it disappear." We worked fast. The steel supports came down with a satisfying screech, and the concrete footings were pried out like rotten teeth. Rusty watched from the porch, tail wagging, as we loaded the whole mess onto Mike's trailer. By dusk, my yard was a churned-up disaster, but the billboard was gone. I even swept away the spray paint markers they'd used to stake out the ground. Mike clapped me on the shoulder. "I'll keep this junk at my lot. Let's see if they've got the guts to come for it." I thought that was the end of it. I cracked a beer, fired up the grill, and started planning how to fix my irrigation lines. Then headlights swept across my driveway. A silver SUV was parked crookedly, and out stepped a woman I recognized from neighborhood meetings I'd wisely avoided. Linda Grayson, president of the Pineview Estates HOA, strode toward me, her short gray hair bouncing with every furious step. She clutched a leather binder like it was a shield. "You had no right to touch that sign," she snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "It was authorized by the Board for Community Enhancement." I stepped off the porch, keeping my tone level. "Authorized by a board that has no say over my property. I've got the deed, the county map, and your own lawyer's letter saying my land's exempt. You poured concrete on my sprinklers, Linda. That's not enhancement. That's destruction." Her eyes narrowed, lips pursing like she'd bitten a lemon. "This is about community pride, Jack. That sign was for visibility, for all of us. You've made a serious mistake." She thrust a finger at me, then spun around and stormed back to her car, tires squealing as she peeled out. I didn't sleep well that night. Something told me this was just the beginning. By morning, I had a fresh pot of coffee, a stack of legal documents on my kitchen table, and a certified letter taped to my front door. It was from the Pineview Estates HOA, accusing me of vandalizing community property and demanding $38,000 for the sign's removal and loss of neighborhood aesthetic value. They'd included a grainy photo of the sign before I took it down, time-stamped 3 days before I'd even left for my trip. They knew I was gone. This wasn't an oversight, it was calculated. At 8 a.m., 2 HOA inspectors showed up at my gate, wearing neon vests and carrying clipboards. One was a wiry guy with a permanent smirk, the other a woman who looked like she'd been born annoyed. "We're here to document the damage to association assets," the woman said, not bothering with a hello. I pulled out my phone, already recording. "You're on private property. No easement, no permission. Leave, or I'll call the sheriff." The guy tried to argue, but when I pointed to the security camera I'd installed overnight, they backed off, muttering about legal consequences. I emailed the video to my lawyer, Sarah Klein, a sharp-witted attorney who'd handled a property dispute for me years ago. Her response was immediate. "This is gold. We're going to bury them." The HOA didn't stop. That afternoon, my neighbor Tom, a retired mechanic, texted me a photo of a flyer stuffed in his mailbox. It showed me standing in my yard, arms crossed, with the headline, "Resident Sabotages Community Unity." The text claimed I'd threatened HOA officials and was undermining neighborhood safety. By evening, Tom stopped by with screenshots from the Pineview Estates online forum. Linda and her allies were painting me as a rogue homeowner, a menace who'd attacked community values. They'd even posted my landscaping business's website, urging people to warn my clients about me. "They're coming for you, Jack," Tom said, leaning against my porch railing. "Linda's got half the neighborhood whipped into a frenzy." I nodded, jaw tight. Let her try? She picked the wrong fight. I called Sarah again. She'd already dug into the HOA's paperwork and found that the contractor who built the sign had a history of shady deals. "This is just the start," she said. "We're countersuing for property damage, trespass, and harassment. And I'm betting there's more dirt to find." That night, one of my new trail cameras pinged. I pulled up the footage, 2 figures in hoodies creeping along my fence line. One tossed something over a rock wrapped in a note that read, "Back off, or you and your dog are done." Rusty growled as I showed the video to the sheriff's deputy, who arrived an hour later. "This is escalating fast," he said, bagging the note. "We'll run prints and check local cameras. Stay vigilant." The HOA's lawsuit landed in my inbox the next morning, Pineview Estates versus Jack Harper. They claimed I'd willfully destroyed critical infrastructure, defamed the association, and caused emotional distress to residents. They wanted $38,000 in damages plus $15,000 for reputational harm. Sarah laughed when I forwarded it to her. "This is a circus," she said. "We're countersuing $4,120,000 land damage, irrigation repairs, security costs, and pain and suffering. And I'm adding fraud for that fake approval they claimed." The HOA doubled down. A local blog ran a story titled "Homeowner Wrecks Neighborhood Harmony," quoting Linda as heartbroken by my aggressive defiance. Then Sarah uncovered a bombshell during discovery. A consent form for the sign, supposedly signed by the previous owner of my land, a man named Henry Walsh. The problem was, Henry had been dead for 6 years. The signature was dated 4 months ago, notarized by a paralegal who worked out of a strip mall. "This is criminal," Sarah said. "We're requesting a judicial review for document fraud." The judge didn't blink. He set a hearing to investigate the forgery, and Sarah pushed to preserve all HOA communications. That same night, I found a patch of my lawn soaked in gasoline, though it hadn't been lit. My cameras caught a figure in a familiar hoodie, same build as the rock thrower. Sarah enhanced the footage, and we identified him. Carl Grayson, Linda's cousin, who'd been spotted at HOA events. I reported it to the sheriff, who added it to the growing case file. The HOA went silent after that, but the tension hung like storm clouds. Sarah called me early one morning, her voice electric. The judge approved a warrant. We're raiding their office. At 10 a.m., deputies hit the Pineview Estates office, a cramped space next to a dry cleaner. They seized a folder labeled Historical Property Agreements, containing 4 forged signatures from deceased landowners. Emails between Linda and the contractor revealed she'd instructed him to use this parcel, the owner's away. A Google Maps printout had my lot circled with vacant, yes scribbled beside it. The contractor, facing heat, cut a deal with the DA, claiming Linda misled him about ownership. The story broke online by noon, and reporters started circling my property. I stayed quiet, but the HOA's members began to crack. My neighbor Ellen, a quiet librarian, came by with 2 other residents, Mark and Diane. We've had enough, Ellen said. Linda's been fleecing us for years. They handed me a stack of old meeting minutes showing unrecorded votes and missing funds. One email from Linda to a board member read, "Push back, and I'll bury you in fines." Sarah added it to our case, amending our suit to include systemic corruption. Then the HOA made another mistake. A second billboard, identical to the first, appeared at the edge of my driveway, with a note, "Tear this down, and you're finished." I called the sheriff, who was losing patience. "This is harassment, plain and simple," he said. "We're upping patrols." That night, I sat on my porch with Rusty, a shotgun across my lap. The wind rustled the oaks, and my security lights blinked steadily. I wasn't scared, just ready. The HOA had forged documents, trashed my land, and threatened my life. They thought they could bully me into submission. They were wrong. The real escalation came at 3 a.m. A week later. Rusty's barking woke me, and the air reeked of smoke. I grabbed a fire extinguisher and ran outside to find flames licking the dry grass near my back fence. Someone had poured kerosene and tossed a match. My cameras caught it all. Carl Grayson, limping slightly, dousing the ground. I put out the fire before it spread, but the message was clear. This wasn't about a sign anymore. It was personal. The sheriff arrested Carl the next day. They found kerosene cans in his garage and burns on his hands. Under questioning, he admitted Linda had put him up to it, saying, "Make him regret crossing us." Linda was arrested that evening, still in her bathrobe, screaming about injustice. The charges: conspiracy, arson, intimidation, and fraud. Her mugshot hit the local news by morning. The fallout was swift. Residents came forward with stories of Linda's reign: $80,000 in unaccounted fines, cash payments that vanished, and threats against anyone who questioned her. The HOA board imploded, 3 members resigned, 2 distanced themselves, and the treasurer, Paul Reed, turned state's evidence. He revealed Linda had siphoned funds from a community reserve for the billboard, bypassing any vote. The contractor was her old high school friend, paid double the market rate. Sarah filed for a class action suit, and 15 residents joined, sharing tales of harassment. A veteran fined for a non-compliant flagpole, a widow threatened with eviction over a garden shed. Anonymous emails started arriving, containing HOA records and emails hinting at boundary manipulations. Someone was leaking from the inside. The civil trial was a spectacle. Courtroom 4 was packed, the air thick with tension. Sarah laid out our case: property damage, trespass, fraud, harassment. She played footage of the billboard's construction, Linda's voice clear. "He's gone. Just do it." The forged consent form drew gasps, and Paul's testimony about the shadow fund sealed it. I took the stand last, looking straight at the HOA's lawyer. "I just wanted to be left alone," I said. "They invaded my land, lied, and tried to burn me out. This was never about community. It was about power." The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Verdict: $200,000 in damages, $50,000 in punitive damages, and all legal fees covered. The judge dissolved the HOA board, ordering a county audit. He referred the evidence to the DA for criminal charges. The gallery erupted in applause. Linda's criminal trial was quieter. She faced conspiracy, arson, fraud, and intimidation. Carl's testimony, backed by emails and her handwritten notes, buried her. She got 10 years, no parole for 6. 2 board members took pleas, banned from HOA roles. The county took over Pineview Estates, issuing refunds and repairs. Sarah helped other victims file suits. I rebuilt my yard, planting apple trees where the billboard stood. I added a stone bench and a new mailbox, solid iron, unmovable. Evenings, I sit with Rusty, sipping whiskey and watching the Oregon sunset. A neighbor stopped by once, thanking me for fighting. I just nodded. I'm no crusader. I'm just a man who wanted his land and his peace. This fight wasn't just about a sign. It was about standing up when someone tries to take what's yours. If you're reading this, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you faced injustice like this? Where do you draw the line when power turns to abuse? Share your stance. Let's get the conversation going.